All right, as you're introducing yourselves, I too will introduce myself. As I mentioned, am Brittany Griffin, part of the Learner-Centered Collaborative team. I am a former French teacher, and I'm joining from Atlanta, Georgia today. Born and raised in Georgia, although my accent I've heard doesn't give it away. But really excited. We've got folks from every time zone. As you can see in the chat, we've got folks from California. I am feeling very, very envious of Southern California weather today, as it's unbearingly hot in Atlanta already. Who else do we have? Excited to look. Oh, we've got Jim, great, also in California. Kristen, hey, from Dallas, great to see you. Oh, very strong West Coast contingent today. Very excited that you've all come to join us. But most importantly, I think we want to hear from the kiddos. So I want to hear from our presenters. I'm going to start off with Ari, who is in Dallas, Texas. Ari, will you give us a quick intro? Again, just your name, your school, and your grade level.
Absolutely. Hi, everyone. Super great to be here. I'm Ari Morans, 12th grade student at Akiba Yavin Academy, like she mentioned, in Dallas, Texas.
Thanks, Ari. Let's go over to Finley and Levi in Northern California.
I'm Levi, sixth grader at Chico Country Day, and thank you for letting us come.
I'm Finley, and I'm also a sixth grader at Chico Country Day. Thank you.
Thank you, Finley and Levi. Welcome, welcome. Let's go down to Ava, who is in Southern California. Ava, nice to meet you.
Hi, nice to meet everyone. I'm a ninth grader at Laguna Beach High School right now, and I'm super excited to present.
Let's go over to Lady, who's joining us from Hawaii.
Hello, my name is Lady Sakan. I'm a eighth grader at Seeks Middle School, and like she said, from Honolulu, Hawaii.
Welcome, welcome. And last but certainly not least, let's go over to Evan and Eli in the Northwest, or the Northwest, the Northeast, Northwestern Pennsylvania.
Hi, I'm Evan Hartman. I'm from Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania.
I'm Eli Wharton, same with me. And we're both in Hampton Middle School and in eighth grade.
Thanks, Hampton team. All right, so you just heard from the learners who will be presenting their exhibitions today. You'll also get a chance to meet their leaders when we go into our breakout room. So rest assured, you'll get to meet lots of folks and lots of new faces today as we dive in. So we'll do a little bit of framing, a little bit of intro, and then we're going to get into those student exhibitions. With that, I just want to orient us. The reason that we're here today is because we are redesigning the future of public education. And at LCC, we really believe that student exhibitions and defenses of learning are a big part of that. And we believe it's an opportunity for kids to talk about how they know who they are, thrive in community, and actively engage in the world as their best selves, which is our vision statement. So this is very much connected to our vision and mission and values as we move the work forward in this learner-centered space. We are so lucky to partner with so many different schools across the country. We public schools, private schools, and everyone in between. And as we engage in that work, we think about our work through an ecosystem lens. And what holds these schools in common as we talk about these different students and their exhibitions are each of them have defined their whole learner outcomes. So each of these schools has a learner profile or a portrait of a learner that serves as a North Star. So in these exhibitions, you're going to hear about those different outcomes or competencies that the students are developing. But then you're also going to hear from the leaders about the learning experiences, the school design structures, and the conditions that were in place to bring those exhibitions to life. So you'll hear both from the learners and from the leaders to get a little bit of front of house, back of house information. So what exactly is an exhibition of learning? This is an opportunity for students to have an authentic, real life audience. And typically exhibitions of learning happen seasonally, right? Like it's a once per year or twice per year experience, and it's a very flexible format. Some students might perform a skit, another might do a formal presentation. It's very flexible in its format. And oftentimes it's not even an individual student presenting, but it could be a whole group of students presenting at the same time. So again, exhibitions are maximum flexibility. And an exhibition isn't always graded. It certainly can be, but it's very flexible. It doesn't even have to be graded. And we contrast this with a defense of learning. And today you're going to have the opportunity to see both exhibitions and defenses of learning. So difference with a defense of learning is that it is graded, right? It might even be a promotion to the next grade level requirement or a graduation requirement. The audience for defensive learning is often more targeted. So it would be a smaller panel that's often handpicked just for that student's presentation. And as I mentioned before, the audience is a little bit more specific. So a defensive learning is most often an individual student defending the learning from the year, whereas an exhibition, as I mentioned, can be a larger group. So while we see these as two different experiences, they share the most important thing in common, which is that they give learners the opportunity to express how they have practiced and demonstrated those whole learner outcomes in their learner profile or portrait of a learner. And so there might be some nuanced differences, and one isn't better than the other. So in fact, we encourage you to explore both to see what might work best in your school context. So on today's call, we're going to have both. We have a few defenses, we have a few exhibitions, and I hope that you explore all of them so you can see what might work best for you. We just know at the end of the day, when we start with learners, we start from a place of possibility. So I encourage you to lean in to that spirit of possibility as we imagine what exhibitions and defenses might look like in your school context in coming years.
All right, so Ava, I'll go super quick. I'm giving a little context. Ava did this last year when she was in 8th grade. She's currently in 9th grade, so we're at different school sites. But this was a middle school pilot, and our hope is that maybe next year this trickles down to our elementary schools and trickles up to our high school because it went really well. And I think our vision is that this could be something that maybe all 5th graders, 8th graders, and 11th graders do as a culminating experience at for their time in our respective schools. But this has evolved a little bit since Ava did it. So what I'm showing you is the latest iteration, and we actually just finished these this morning before the webinar. So Ava's will have a slightly different look and feel, but it's the same general concept. So asking students to identify their strengths and their interests, literally whatever they're interested in that they want to share about. And their strengths we pulled from Thrively. So Thrively is a tool that we use to capture all kinds of things about students, one of which is their strengths. So we have them talk about one of each of these in more detail and explain, why they're into surfing or why they feel like they're an arranger, whatever the case might be. And then we had students select one of our 5 learner profile outcomes. So ours are constructive collaborator, creative problem solver, effective communicator, empathetic citizen, and empowered learner. So whichever one they decided to highlight, they've been going through each of their classes throughout the year and identifying artifacts or projects or things that they've done in those classes that they're really proud of. So they identify one project or one of those activities that speaks to how they have become, in this case, let's say an empowered learner. And then they identified 2 specific durable skills that will last a lifetime that speak to this. And we had them go into detail and depth and talk about how they had to grow or develop those durable skills and how this project helped them do that to show that they were, in this case, an empowered learner. We also asked them to get an endorsement. We felt like this was something for them to understand that if somebody else can speak to how you are a constructive collaborator or whatever the case might be, that would gives it more credence and credibility for them. It makes it more authentic. So we had them reach out to a family member or a friend or a teacher or a sibling or a grandparent and just have them write a couple sentences endorsing their ability to communicate effectively or whatever the case might be. The last sort of unique component to this is we wanted to encourage our students to think about a staff member or a group of staff members that have helped them get to where they are. And so we had them do a little gratitude piece to their presentation. So we asked them to identify a staff member that cared about them, a staff member that shared a common interest with them, and a staff member that inspired them to be curious. And this became one of the coolest parts of the presentation, to have students share in front of that teacher or in front of that adult how thankful they were or grateful they were for them for helping them get to this place in their learning journey was really powerful and neat. So I'm gonna stop there and hand it over to Ava and have her share about her experience. Ava, I don't know if you decided you wanted to just do your presentation or just talk about it, but yeah. I think it would be at least worth showing, sharing your screen and showing.
Okay. Okay, can you see my screen? Okay, perfect. Yeah, I would just want to show This is what I made last year in 8th grade for my cool presentation. And so when we first started out, they had us take a test to actually figure out what some of our strengths could be. And so one of my top strengths was academics, and I think that this definitely applies to me because I take a lot of honors classes and accelerated classes, and I think it's really important to be educated, and I love learning about a bunch of different topics. And yeah. And then creative thinking, I'm a super creative person. I love art and music, and I'll talk a little bit more about that later. And then assertiveness, this year I'm taking classes like MUN, which is Model United Nations. And I've also taken classes like Moot Court, which is like a mock trial simulation in the past. So I really like debating people and talking about different opinions and different topics. And I think it's just a great way to see other sides of a problem. Okay. And then 3 things I want you to know about me is first, I love music. Like I said before, I love being creative and I love art. And so I play the piano and then I'm also learning the guitar. And I just always love to have music playing. And then I also love reading. I think it's another great way to learn about different topics and to see different perspectives that you can't really reach in any other way. And then I also really like running. This year I ran varsity cross country and track, and it's a huge part of my life. I think that it's definitely taught me a lot about how to work hard and also balance my academics and my athletics at the same time. And so the first trait that I decided to highlight is how I can be a creative problem solver. And my example for this was here. I made a doc with some of my drawings on it. This is from last year. Oops. Wait, sorry. Let me see if I can.
We can see it, Ava.
Okay. And then, so basically, I just wanted to show kind of how I've progressed in a lot of my art. And so the portrait that's highlighted in green, that was one of my older drawings. And I think you can kind of see that the shading isn't as blended or cohesive in comparison to my next 3. And I've never really taken many art lessons, so a lot of my how I've learned to draw and how I draw, a lot of it comes from just trial and error. And that's why I chose my durable skill for this to be experimentation. And then I also included another drawing, which is from this year, just to show more of my progress. And yeah, I just think that I've definitely improved, and I'm obviously still working to get better. But yeah, so I chose my durable skill as experimentation. Oops. And aside from just my drawing and my art, I definitely use experimentation in a lot of my classes too. Like in my science class, we're constantly doing tests where we have to try new things, and sometimes it doesn't always work on the first try. So I definitely reach things through a lot of trial and error, as well as just try new things in life. Like I'll join new clubs or classes just to see what I could be interested in or what I could excel at. And then my second trait that I decided to highlight is how I'm an effective communicator. And for this, I chose my example as a suspense narrative that I wrote last year in my 8th grade English class. And basically, it's a story about a character called the Gravesmith, who he can show people what their lives would have been like if they had no regrets. But once he does so, then basically they die. And I had a lot of fun writing this narrative, but one thing that I've always struggled a lot with is communicating my ideas across effectively. And so throughout this process, I had to reread and revise a lot. But now that I'm in high school and I'm taking classes like Moot Court and MUN, I don't have as much of the luxury and time to rephrase and rewrite everything in my head before I have to present it. Because in MUN, you're constantly talking about topics and you just have to be ready to like speak on anything, kind of. So yeah, I think I'm definitely still growing in being an even more effective communicator with a lot of the classes that I'm taking this year. And then, yeah, this was some of my teachers from last year who my gratitude went out to at my middle school. They're really great. And yeah, that's my presentation.
So the other thing that we did at the end of the presentations, Ava, good job, by the way, is we had an opportunity for anybody who was watching in the audience to ask questions or offer kudos, or if they had any connections, they could tie together. So maybe we can have that same opportunity for you guys. Any questions or kudos or connections for Ava?
I'm curious, Ava, how as you entered high school, equipped with this knowledge about yourself, how that helped you choose your classes or choose what you were getting into. So I know you said, now I'm doing Model UN, or what are there any other spaces where you're in a class and knowing that there are certain strengths you have where you can advocate for the way in which you show your learning?
Yeah, definitely. So, like I said before, I've taken MUN because I've always just been really interested in knowing what's going on and having the education to be able to form your own opinions. And yeah, I just think also in other classes, like I said in my science class, we always have to try new things. And you have to think about things in a different way because a lot of the times you can solve problems in different ways that they're already being solved. And also in some of my other classes, we have debates, and I know that I can excel at that. So I know that I can lead a group or kind of lead the project in a way that we can do well at it. So yeah.
I had a very similar question, actually. It was put in a slightly different tack. First of all, when you're looking at your strengths, I think I would encourage you to add self-awareness to you seem to be very, I don't know if that was through going through the project, but you seem to be very aware of your strengths and also areas for improvement. There's a lot of people who are very oblivious walking around, and you're not one of them, for sure.
Thank you.
But my question is, now that you've left middle school and are in high school, do you feel, because I'm assuming the high school doesn't follow the same model, or that's an assumption, I don't know.
Yeah, it's different.
Right. So do you feel like you want to change the high school model to be more reflective of your middle school experience, or are you satisfied with the way the high school is it meeting your needs in a different way?
Mm-hmm. It's definitely different, but I think that from my transition to middle school to high school, like I said with my sports, it's definitely gotten more intense. And I think that high school's kind of taught me how to be more independent, and it kind of gives you not as many, it still provides resources for help, but it's not as much as a hand holding experience as middle school was. But me personally, I think that that's a good thing. And I think that in life, we're going to have to develop those skills one way or another. So, yeah.
And sorry, last question. Does your high school have a portrait of a graduate? Or a portrait of a learner?
Oh, I don't think so.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, our learner profile is a district-wide,
Gotcha.
a district-wide initiative. But we've been looking at, we've had pilot groups at our different school sites. We're a really small school district. We're only 4 schools, 2 elementary, 1 middle, 1 high school. So we've just been looking for different ways to pilot how to bring the learner profile to life, how to have it not just be a document on a shelf somewhere, and to make it really stick, and to have our students leave each of our school sites, and then eventually when they graduate, really like feel like they know what it means to be an empowered learner or a constructive collaborator or whatever that might be. So this is just one thing that we've been piloting, and we're hopeful that we can expand it. But there are other ways that the learner profile is coming to life in our school district, for sure.
One thing I also loved about your presentation is the call out for adults in your life that like help you, that you feel cared for. I imagine as you moved into high school, it's a whole new set of adults. How do you go about cultivating those relationships so that you do have an adult that cares about you, an adult that pushes you?
Yeah, I think that, I mean, the teachers here are really great, so it makes it pretty easy for us. But I think just always being respectful, and I ask a lot of questions in a lot of my classes, and yeah, it kind of just that naturally leads to just having a connection with my teachers. Yeah, just like being interested to always learn more about whatever they're teaching.
And that's one of the reasons we added that portion into the presentation is just looking at data and trying to figure out ways to get our students more connected on campus with adults because of the research that shows how impactful that can be for learning. And we're seeing the fruits of that. I mean, our results on the California Healthy Kids Survey are like off the charts, where kids feel 80 to 90% of them feel like they have an adult on campus that cares about them. And so that's really beautiful to see. Any other questions for us? I think, did she just say we have another minute or so?
Yeah, she said 2 more minutes.
Okay.
Eva, I just wanted to share, I was so impressed by how poised you are as a presenter and how self-possessed you are. As James was sort of hinting at this too, your self-awareness is really impressive.
Thank you.
I'm curious about, Joe was asking about how you develop relationships with teachers in the high school and like the new setting. And I'm curious about, for kids who have maybe like less inclination, or for whom communicating, being outgoing, asking questions maybe comes less naturally. How do you see, does school support them to learn how to do those things? Or how do you see them developing those skills that maybe come more naturally to you, but maybe might not be as natural for like a friend or someone you know?
I think that a lot of the teachers here, they try to involve all the schools and all of the kids in all of the classes. So sometimes if kids won't be like raising their hand, then they'll be called on. But also we work a lot in small groups, and I think that this kind of helps people feel more comfortable in a smaller setting to kind of speak their mind or ask questions and be more curious. So yeah.
This was my presentation for the end of my senior year, just to kind of talk about my time at Akiba Yavin Academy. So let's get into it. Just quickly before I get started, this was a presentation from about like 2 months ago, and it was built to be around 10-15 minutes. So I'm going to be giving like a more condensed, shorter version, so just bear with me. I'm going to might skip over some things, but I'll give you kind of the meat and everything that's important. So yeah. So this will be, my presentation's about, quickly talk about myself. I'll talk about the driving question that was given to me, and then my opening statement as a response to that. Some of my goals, my reflection. I have 2 portraits of graduates, which you'll see when I get to it. I have some evidences, and then we'll leave it to questions. So quickly about me, like I said, I'm Ari Morans from Akiba Yavin Academy in Dallas, Texas. I'm 17 years old. In terms of my school experience, I've been at Akiba Yavin Academy for 2 years. I'm originally from Toronto, Canada, so I went to public school there for 2 years. And this past summer, I did a 3-week program at University of Miami, like a pre-college program. In terms of my hobbies and interests, I love sports in general, especially basketball, and I just love being active. And I'm a big sleeper, so I love sleeping. And at Akiba Yavin Academy, I played varsity basketball for 2 years, and I've started, been the president CEO of my own business club for 2 years, which I'll talk about more later. So this was my driving question. So I was asked, how has your Akiba Yavin Academy education shaped the learner, leader, and person you are becoming as you transition beyond high school? So my opening statement in response to that was, my education and time at AYA has shaped me into the person I need to be in order to transition to the next stage of my life. I've learned to become adaptable, committed, and learned a myriad of lessons suitable for more than just school and education. So here were some of my goals. My goals when I first created and presented by the end of the semester was to see my GPA, finish my high school on a good note, which I was able to do so. And then by graduation was to just become a decisive person, kind of take action person. For 1 to 5 years, I was asked, like in the next 1 to 5 years, I was asked what's going to matter to me most in the next phase of high school. And I said I wanted to keep excelling in my studies and find a good balance between the school life and education. Social life and education. And then for my goals within 20 years, what do I hope stays true about me was I just hope that my caring and compassion for others stays true to myself over the next 20 years and beyond. So my reflection over my time at AYA was that I found my strengths were that I took initiative. I was always finishing work on time, did everything on time. And I worked to really understand information rather than memorize, like studying for tests and stuff like that. And areas to improve on, kind of like I talked about in my goal, I want to be a more driven, take action person. I want to work on my procrastination a little bit, and I just want to. My goal is to embrace any community and culture I'm ever around wherever I go to the next stage of my life. Just kind of embrace everything around me and kind of immerse myself in that culture. So we had two portraits of a graduate, and the first one I talked about was me being a confident leader. As I mentioned before, I started and ran my own business club, and in this business club, my goal originally was I didn't think it was going to be anything too big, but I just wanted to teach everything business. Our school doesn't, or at least not yet, doesn't have a business course or anything like that. So I want to really bring business to all the students, my fellow students and peers around me. And so I started out with around 10, 15 students last year when I first started the club. And this year, we more than doubled, having like over 30 students in my business club, which was amazing. And I was so happy to see. And we did all different types of stuff. We did a little like kind of fun projects. I did stock simulations, gave students an opportunity to simulate like creating their own business, stuff like that, and just see all different aspects. We had, as you see here at the top right, we had a speaker come and talk about sales, which kind of gave everyone a little bit of inspiration, which I thought was amazing. And one of the things I really focused on this past school year was creating a DECA chapter. I think it's so important. I think DECA is an amazing way to immerse yourself and get really what business is like and understand. And you get to compete with kids all over the state, all over the country. And I thought that was amazing. So what me and my business partners did was that we reached out to these people in DECA, all of this, and I pretty much we started to get the wheels turning to get our school a DECA chapter. As you can see here at the bottom right, we went to the Texas DECA state competition, just see what that was like. And from there, we thought this is definitely something we need to bring to our school. So that was one example of me being a confident leader. And during my time at AOA, I've also been an effective communicator. So in both of my English classes, I did English 3 last year and I took AP Literature this year. And I learned to be an effective communicator because we did all these seminars and where based on mainly text where we'd read, we discuss and about different topics like that were prompted to us. And the main thing that I learned to become an effective communicator was not only to be able to communicate my opinions and always bring evidence, which is so important to be able to back what you're saying, but also to be able to communicate with others effectively. We learned to not only be able to disagree or come to a conclusion, but be able to do it respectfully while acknowledging other people's points and opinions and viewpoints, and acknowledging that sometimes they're right and coming either to an agreement or sometimes agreeing to disagree, which is still fine. But all of that has taught me to become an effective communicator at Kiva Yachting Academy. So we did 5 pieces of evidence. I'll share with you guys 2 of my favorite ones, most important ones I think that really stick out. And both of these kind of allude to just like my growth at AOA. So one of them was here, my artifact 1, which took place in my English 3 class last year. And we would do ICEs, in-class essays, and we did 4 of them. And in my first one, we just did it. We got thrown into the deep end kind of. And the scoring was out of 90, and I got a 69 out of 90. Definitely not a grade I was super happy with. And my first essay it's because it's timed, it's in 40 minutes. You get a prompt on the spot, and it was probably one of the worst essays I think I've ever written. But the thing about Kiva Yachting Academy, and especially my English 3 class, was that it was all about growth. And so with my teacher's help and also just putting in the work here, I linked like one of my kind of worksheets to like work on my essays pretty much. But just kind of going back, reviewing, seeing what I did wrong, seeing what I did right, and applying everything I can into my next essay, and then taking from that essay into the next essay and kind of building on everything and working on everything I did wrong and keeping up everything I did right pretty much. And so with that work, by the end, I was able to get 89 out of 90 and 99 out of 90 on my last 2 essays, which for me, I was super happy about, which not only is a good grade, but also that was for me the hardest unit. So kind of that perseverance and just working always to improve something, rather than definitely in the beginning, just instead of saying, oh, this is too hard for me, kind of working towards doing the best as possible. So that's one of my evidences. And another piece of my evidence here on the right, my Article 5 was we worked on, me and two partners in my last year's physics class, we worked on this mousetrap car, where we made a car with the motor was a mousetrap. And the thing that stuck out about this project was that our very first car was barely moved. It was too heavy. There were so many different factors that we didn't think about or that we measured wrong. But the thing about this project and this car and this class was that it fostered room to really not only make something kind of from scratch, which is so cool, but also take what we learned from our first car, for example. We saw everything that we did bad, and we built that into our second car, and we just kind of built on it. And all these small factors, you kind of have to pay very close attention to all these things. And me and my partners, we have to build on every single car, and we have to make everything better. And it's just kind of, again, that perseverance, similar to the other evidence I gave earlier, just that kind of constantly building and taking what you did wrong and fixing it. And it's just also you build so much in that process of the growth. So not only did we come out with a good, fast car that performed well in our kind of class competition, but we grew so much just in that development process of going from version to version and always kind of striving to do the best we can and trying to achieve the best and stuff like that. So it's just that process as well that was so much growth, and our class kind of just fostered that always trial and error kind of environment, which was amazing. So yeah, that's kind of everything I have. Thank you guys for listening. Quickly, before I go to questions, I'm gonna pass it on to Ms. Hutchinson to say a few words.
Thank you, Ari. That was awesome. Nice job.
Thank you.
So as you heard from Ari, he really did an awesome job. I think this is probably the third time he's had to give this, so I appreciate him coming to do this for us. I just wanted to give a little bit of background about how we came to this and what we're doing. So the Senior Summit experience is a part of Akiba Yavna's larger effort to cultivate more student agency, students taking more of a leading role in their education. This year I took on organizing the Senior Summit. In its second year, I wanted to explore how we could strengthen what we started in the first year. And what I decided to do was to take a design learning approach. And in doing that, I interviewed everybody who was involved last year. And through that, I learned that we had some opportunity to increase our rigor. And so we moved from having a group reflection process to a individual reflection experience. And also those interviews, we learned that we wanted to learn a few things this year. One is how to get students to understand the value of reflecting and taking ownership of this process, how we can make finding artifacts feel achievable because they haven't been collecting, because this is a new thing, they haven't been collecting pieces of evidence over their high school years. So we wanted to explore that. And then we also wanted to sort of explore the roles, like defining what students owned, defining what advisors had to support, and just the whole process. So from there, I designed a design sprint, I drafted prototypes, I tested them with the senior advisors and with the senior student leadership. In those meetings, we decided to add a rubric to the process. And for students who scored skilled or distinguished on the rubric, they were awarded a cord to wear at graduation as well as a certificate. We also wanted to really emphasize that this is a celebration of learning as well. So those are two things that the advisors really wanted. And then the students said they wanted flexibility in how and when they created their presentations and their experience. So at the same time, I was researching how other schools were doing this and got the opportunity to be a community panelist at a public high school nearby here. So I was able to experience it live as well. So as a result, I created a simple Google site, and that's linked in the website that y'all were provided, I believe. Ari, are you able to share that? Because I'm not sure
Absolutely,
I'm able to do that.
Yeah, of course. It's right.
Yeah, so there's a link to it in there, and it had all of the required elements, including the driving question. It had a goal setting activity. Yeah, if you click on the Senior Summit resources. Awesome, thank you. So, oops, oh no, it didn't work. Uh-oh. Well, we'll get everyone the right link. I'm not sure it worked earlier. I'm not sure why it doesn't work now.
I'll drop it
At
in
any
the
rate,
chat.
oh, thank you, Kristen. It's in the chat. Thank you. So it had a goal setting activity. There was an invitation Google form. So students were allowed to, they could invite anyone they wanted to their senior summit. There were reflection prompts that were tied to our portrait of a graduate, along with a rubric with a checklist of what success looks like. And then also I included 2 examples for students to explore and to use. And those examples weren't from us because we had changed the process so much. I didn't want to use previous ones. So I just threw that out there. I didn't know whether or not students would want to use it or not. And the results I felt like really exceeded my expectations. Almost all the seniors except one presented. Many of them invited more than just their parents. We had our retired college counselor come, we had coaches, we had former teachers. And Ari can respond to this, but I do think that every senior probably went into the whole thing with some reservations, not really wanting to do this. However, it felt to me that they came away feeling good about it because everyone in that room was rooting for them and celebrating them. It really did turn into a beautiful celebration. It was actually really moving to experience. It was just so heartfelt. I have survey data. I have plans to conduct some post-senior summit interviews with the advisors, but anecdotally, I think we learned a lot from this year's experience in what we set out to learn about student ownership, finding artifacts and roles. One thing next year I know that we're going to do is start doing this earlier. We're going to have the seniors start right away in the fall so they can really do a deep dive into the whole process. So that was our experience. Ari, do you have any reflection? Like maybe you could tell us which resources were most useful to you.
I'd say for sure the most useful resource was that one. It's like a Google site and it pretty much kind of has everything. It has that rubric that Ms. Hutchinson mentioned, which was definitely kind of like my basis, my pillar for everything, right? I knew how many evidences I needed to include. And then what was also really helpful was they had like an examples from a student at like another school, but there's an example. Just that kind of helped me pick out different evidences and kind of what really like that had me even go deeper back into my previous years. So that was super helpful as well. So that had there's a whole Google site that just with everything, as well as there are even kind of worksheets to complete to help you determine which portrait of a graduate were you, and you could try out different ones and see, okay, which do I think really fits me? Kind of things like that I think were super helpful.
So with that, if anyone has any questions for Ari or myself, we're here.
Sure. Hey, I'm Chad Mayberry from Laguna Beach, California. So all incredible presentation, Ari. Just seeing how you kind of reflected on your own growth and your strengths was really powerful. And you have that agency to go forward. I think my question is, like looking back, right? You're 12th grade now, looking back maybe at your other grades, are there projects or essays or themes that you would potentially add to your evidence, that were older that you're like, this was really valuable and I could see my growth if I shared this.
Definitely, there were some things. Well, because like I mentioned, I was only at Akiba Yavne for like 2 years, so I tried my best to kind of get evidence from that short amount of time. But especially even if I like kind of thought to even go back to all my years or whatever, definitely I think the biggest thing that I mentioned was the essays and kind of just like that growth over them. But I think just honestly, I was thinking about it and I was thinking like, I think really any project that I've done, because almost like I feel like everything kind of has some type of trial and error. So a lot of these projects, like in all my different classes, especially the more hands-on ones, like in my physics class, like I mentioned, that wasn't the only hands-on project we did. We did a bunch of other ones. So any of those I could have definitely reflected on as well. I just didn't want to get too repetitive. So a lot of those hands-on ones specifically because those are the ones that kind of take the most trial and error. So yeah, I would say mainly like yeah, hands-on on essays, but honestly, I could reflect from anything.
Thank you.
Of course. Any other questions?
I'll jump in. Ari, just to echo everything, so impressed and inspired. Thank you so much for this. And I'm curious on I was looking at the rubric value, the reflection on growth and learning. So what you were just talking about. And I guess I'm curious to hear a little bit more about how you went about thinking about growth and like specific skills. Like were there certain, and how did you come to focus on those or picking which portion of a graduate skills? Just curious to hear a little bit more about your reflection, because I know that's one thing that can be hard for other students I've spoken with, where just like the reflection process is not easy in and of itself.
Yeah, for sure. So in terms of like skills, I think I just kind of went back and I knew there's always just there's always kind of stuff that I've known in the back of my head that I can just improve on, especially right like as I'm like I just thought about all my work from all my in all my classes, and I always kind of just thought like what are things in the past that have kind of maybe gotten me not the results I've wanted and stuff like that. So that was the main things I've looked for, and then from that going okay, what was the root of that? And it always, at least most of the time, it kind of simmered down to maybe a little skill or stuff like that. And then in terms of the portrait of the graduates, that was, I think, just what I did for those is I kind of thought about what are the biggest, I think, things I've done during my time at Akiba Yavna. Like I talked about the business club, that was one of the biggest things I did. And I thought, what did I really exhibit? So I looked through the list that we were given, which was again also another resource that was super helpful. And so I looked at that and I was like, okay, for sure, confident leader goes to business club because I'm kind of leading my people almost, like you could say, quote unquote. So just stuff like that and going to like what was really the most impactful for me and where I feel like I grew from the most. And that's why I also picked those seminars because I feel like I grew a lot in just like speaking with others and speaking respectfully and stuff like that. And then from there, it kind of almost I knew has to be effective communicators. Stuff like that seemed like the main things I really did in my high school time, and simmering it down to what I got from it kind of.
Awesome. Thank you.
For sure.
Real quick, I'm just curious about the infrastructure that the school has for collecting work and curating a portfolio. Is there some like folder that students put their stuff in, over years of time, theoretically? How does that work?
Yeah, so I'll speak to that. That's a new thing for us. So this year we implemented a digital portfolio. In previous years, it's been a Google Slides, it's been a notebook or a 3-ring binder. So it isn't something that's been real, I guess, consistent over the time, because in the high school we've been doing student-led conferences for the last 4 years, I believe, and we're trying to make it more coherent from K to 12, but we're a work in progress. The vision, though, is for at least for the upper school 7 through 12, the vision is to go towards a digital portfolio. And then every year through the student-led conference process, as we get ready for those, they would collect certain piece of evidence. And then when they're 12th grade, they have a whole body of work to look back on. I think we're going to be finishing up here. I keep getting a little reminders. So thank you so much for coming, and please reach out if you have questions in the future.
Thank you everyone for listening. Thank you.
And yeah. So my overall topic was healthy planet, and my 3 mini topics were pollution, reuse and recycle, and green energy. And then pollution, I got credits for this, so. So like pollution is like all over the world because of like there's air pollution, water pollution, and noise pollution, light pollution, tons of pollutions that just hurt our earth and stuff. And cleanups can save animals' lives and discourage people from littering in the future. National Geographic. And then recycling and reusing. We can do a lot by recycling and reusing instead of like using more stuff like car batteries and like solar panels and like just clothes and bottles too. And if it's good for the planet, it's good for you. Time for kids. And green energy. Green energy is like energy that you can get without polluting the world, like gas from cars and stuff. You can instead like use solar panels that use the sun, or like dams to generate power, or even like the wind for like windmills and stuff. And the wind, the sun, and the earth are sources of renewable energy. They help make the local environment cleaner. National Geographic. And then here are my sources. And my guidelines for a healthy planet are don't litter or toss waste into natural habitats or anywhere other than the trash. And then recycle to help the planet and reuse clothes, cars, and tech. And so no more needs to be manufactured and cause waste and pollution. And then using less energy or green energy will reduce the amount of energy used to pollute the environment. And then what are your guidelines for making a healthy planet? My poem is all I ever need to know I learned from the ocean. It's okay to be different. Everyone has their zone. The tides are always changing. Try not to get burned. Don't be afraid to dive down deep. Travel and find your place in it. Never turn your back. Watch out for fish that want to eat you. Eat or be eaten. Keep on swimming. If the sun's down, change your perspective. Stay with your school. And then it's based on All I Ever Need to Know I Learned in Kindergarten by Robert Fulghum. That's it.
Yeah. So for my poem, we did like a collage on the front. That was like part of our thing that like represented what we did. And for my poem, I did All I Ever Needed to Know I Learned from Sinless Bispo by Finley Nixon. It's okay to taste different. Let yourself go sometimes. Stay groovy. It's okay to stand out. If you get knocked over, it's okay. You can always get back up again. Go explore. Roll with the flow. Let the wind be your rhythm. Be graceful yet sweet. If you feel small, don't worry. You can still make a difference. Let go sometimes. Sunny days are necessary. Don't change who you are. Be kind to all. Flow with life. Stay kind. Be who you want to be. And this poem is based on the poem All I Never Needed to Know I Learned from Kindergarten by Robert Fulghum. So for my slides, I did healthy community. My 3 topics were friendships, bullying, and online responsibilities. Friendships are like a high thing for like making a healthy community. Friendships are kind of what like your life is built around. Is it possible to know what someone's like just by looking at them? How to be an awesome friend. This is my other slide. Quotes. Teen friendships help young people feel a sense of acceptance and belonging. Spending time with good friends makes us happier. The importance of teen friendships. My next topic is bullying. Bullying is also a like hard part of healthy community. If people are bullied, then it can affect their community and how like it affects them. If you're not in a group, it can be hard to feel welcome. Is the cafeteria ruining your life? This desire for acceptance leads to bullying because kids are intensely aware of what it takes to fit in. Bullying in the early teen years. Online responsibility is it helps make a healthier community because if you don't have online responsibility, then kids can get bullied online for certain things. The online world has rules and regulations to help people have safe and positive online experiences. Digital citizenship, preteens and teenagers being responsible online. Treat online friends with as much respect as face-to-face friends. Digital citizenship, preteens, and teenagers being responsible online. Here's my sources. My guidelines for a healthy community. Be a good friend, stand up to bullying, and stay responsible. What are your guidelines for a healthy community? Thanks for listening. And there is a picture of my poem and what we did for the quiz.
Brianna, from here, is it helpful if we talk a little bit about like the project context and kind of what things look like?
Yeah, I think just a little like context of where the exhibition came from and how it fits in, and then we could do some Q&A of the kiddos and you.
Yeah, that's great. So can you talk a little bit about the background of like the book that you read and kind of how this project came to be?
Yeah, so we read this book. It was called Bud Not Buddy. And there's this like young, like 10-year-old black kid in the 1920s, 30s, something like that. And the Great Depression. So maybe 40s. I don't know. And he had to like find his people in the world and live like a good life. Because he has these rules to have a fun life and make a better life out of yourself. And he uses them to like survive and thrive. And we did something on that of like a giant essay of which we thought it was more like survive or thrive. And yeah,
we read the book and we would take like each rule and like what it meant in our own words and like what if it like helped him survive or thrive and how it like helped his character. And that was like part of it.
You like documented them.
Yeah. And we did lots of essays and lots of research about like rules for life and how they help you.
And then we just like did extra stuff. Yeah, we did stuff like connecting to that, like our poems and then our slides.
Right. And so school-wide, we typically have 2 exhibitions a year, one in November or so, and then another one in March or April. And the kids start doing that in TK all the way up through 8th grade. We're in TK through 8. And then sometimes there are smaller exhibitions, but those are our 2 large ones each year. And so the 6th grade one, this was just this past April.
And before that was
we did one for science about like the human body systems, and we made like physical projects and we got to share them.
Yeah.
And like parents would come in and there were different stations.
And we have like presentations.
Yeah, presented it together, and it was really.
And then last year as 5th graders, they were reading Esperanza Rising and the Universal Declaration of Human Rights and talking about human rights, and found a local organization that helps provide water resources.
In Uganda.
Yeah, and then they ended up working together with that organization and participating in their Walk for Water event that they have here. And their exhibition was in this like public event that was happening.
Yeah, we raised 12,344, right?
Yeah. 56, something like that.
56,
we raised a bunch of money as a class. We like went to downtown Chico, asked business owners, and we asked family members, friends, and we basically just as a grade like fundraised for that cause.
Yeah.
Open it up maybe to questions that you all may want to ask.
I just wanted to say thanks for the great presentation and sharing your learning. I'd love to hear about how it's connected to bigger questions that you have and life in general. I was curious about what lessons you took away from this project that you want to carry into the future with you.
I just like to say that I took like just like being kind and like all those lessons that like the person in the book did, most of them except for the line part. And just I hope that I could like use them more in the future.
Yeah, I think like making rules for yourself to like follow by, to have like more of a like stable life and just like have rules that you can like go by to like just follow through your life. I think that is probably something I'm gonna take away and try and do myself.
What have you done following the rules that you came up with for your life? How would you grade yourself on how well you've implemented your rules?
Probably like I don't know, like mid high. Yeah.
All right.
I'd say I try. I don't hit all of those boxes, but I definitely try to just follow some rules to stay kind to people and always be, yeah, generous.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
Thank you. Go ahead, Pam.
Yeah, I was just curious, just building on Jim's question. So, what did you learn about yourself during this project about the kind of learner you are, or just about learning in general? What did you find about yourself in that learning space?
I found like that I can like be like really curious sometimes because I was raising my hand the whole time, and also that you could like do have rules to like guide you throughout your whole life, and if they're like good rules, then you could like have a successful, stable like life.
Well, that's a pretty good lesson. Thanks for sharing.
Yeah, I think for me, I think also just like the interactive piece of exhibitions, it's very like you get to like practice like speaking up and like you spend essentially for like 2 weeks beforehand you just drill like your slides and saying stuff and like doing stuff in front of crowds, and I think that is like a really great learning piece for like eventually when you need to like make speeches for when you're older and just like things like that. It's really helpful to learn those things early on in life.
Amazing. Thank you for sharing.
I had a question to build off of what you just said. I appreciated seeing how you connected what you were learning to then, asking your audience, how do you do this? And what are ways? So keeping people engaged thinking. And I also noticed there were some common pieces in your exhibition. So what were some of the places where you got to be a decision maker and got to kind of determine, how to show your learning or what to include or what to read or what to write? Can you talk a little bit about that and how that, maybe was exciting or kept you engaged or not? If you could speak a little bit about that.
Yeah, so we have like lots of okay, well, you know what I mean.
You got it, buddy.
And like our slides, we could do healthy planet, healthy self, or healthy community. So we got to choose like our top three, but then in the end, she just gave everybody their first. And then we got to choose like for our big essays and stuff, whether we thought Bud was like used his rules to survive or he used them to thrive. And then we also did it for our poem because you could do anything for your poem as long as like connects to like you.
Yeah, I think on the poem that was like a really fun like personal piece because like I did where I used to live, and that was like a really personal piece for me that I enjoyed. And I think the collage was just like fun because like I don't collage at home, and just to have like that experience of like being creative and doing that as like a class was really enjoyable. And I also think just like yeah, doing the slides was a great thing, and also like we did a paragraph which actually was probably my favorite that we did. It was about like how do you think like rules help you in your life, and that was something that like made me really think like how do rules help you in your life, like they help you set like good boundaries and just like having like a healthy rules for yourself like can create a healthy life,
good world.
You all talked about practicing a lot and trying the presentation over and over. What does it look like to prepare for an exhibition at your school? What do you do and what supports do you have?
Well, we go through like many different things. Like we had a whole portfolio with like bunch of work, like maybe like almost 2 inches of paper, and so that was all got leading up to like our big like poem and collage and slides and stuff. And then once we like finish that, we just keep practicing and practicing, like presenting and editing and consistency and stuff.
Who do you guys sometimes present to?
We present to our shoulder partners, or just if she's like being nice to us, which usually happens, is she'll let us work with like anybody, and yeah.
Yeah, we also have like younger grades come or even older grades, and they like get to listen to our presentation, and we just like practice weeks beforehand. And also like it really depends on what exhibition it is, because like sometimes we'll be working on a bunch of work and I'm like, what exactly is happening to this work? And then I find out that later it's going to be like used for our exhibition, and then that leads up, and then we have like a week to prepare for like a bunch of things, and it's just really fun. Like leading up to exhibition, it's really like I like look forward to school because there's like a bunch of fun projects that we get to do, and I think it's fun to like get to like interact with those things and then like practice for people, and yeah.
Can I ask another question to build off of that? So as you're practicing or as you're doing all of these different assignments and showing your understanding in a variety of ways, like did you get any feedback from your classmates or from your teachers that changed something that you did in your project or that you applied, that maybe you weren't thinking about, or it kind of changed what you were finally putting into your exhibition? How do you get information about how you're doing and getting new ideas of how to maybe tighten it up and make it, continue to make it the best it can be?
Like when we're like performing in front of older and young grades, we'll like ask them for like critique and stuff, and then also just when we're like presenting one-on-one, they'll be like, good job, but you might need to fix this or like that or something like that.
Yeah, I think feedback is a very big piece of it. Like a lot of people, it's like glows and grows, and it's like, that was great, and then you could grow on this, and just like things like that. It's like presented kindly and like politely. Also, like when we, like for our slides, we actually had to do that in front of like the entire class, and we presented just to like get our nerves out, just like practice that. And so we did that in front of our class, and our teacher graded us, and like classmates gave feedback of whether it was like good and some things that they thought should be changed.
Yeah.
We really appreciate you. I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
Yeah, really, really appreciate you guys giving up your time today to share with us. It's pretty clear you're passionate about what you do, very articulate about how you went about doing it. So thank you. I've got a question, and I'm not sure who among the three of you are the best to answer this, but let's say if you didn't want to do a poem, could you have written a story? Or if you didn't want to do a slide deck, could you have done a video? In other words, how much choice did you have in how you manifested that which you wanted to tell?
Yeah, I think you have like, it's not like you can really do like whatever you want for this topic. It's more like you have a specific like format, like a slideshow, a poem, but you get the choice of like whatever you do it on and how you design it and how you like make it your own presentation. Like it's not like you have to just like type your words into something that's already been made for you. You have to like you have to choose, you get to choose like how you want it designed to be your own.
Yeah, it's like a healthy moderate.
About for the 8th grade students, do they have more voice and choice in how they
The 8th graders
respond to the
like a capstone project, and so they have more flexibility in how they pull it all together. So we would have students with like a podcast or a video or presenting in front of a group, and it would be a little bit more of a range.
Yeah, I think also it depends on what exhibition it is, because like this last exhibition, it was pretty like you do this project and you get to design it, but like we did a natural disasters one in 5th grade, and you got to choose if you wanted to make like a video, a model. You had lots of choices of what kind of thing you wanted to do to like represent your
natural disasters.
Yeah, your natural disasters.
Hey, thank you. I appreciate your responses.
I'll just say it's, hearing you has me thinking a lot about what students in our school district might be able to do to share their learning in an interdisciplinary way, thinking about big questions like what are the rules in life that help you thrive or survive or things like that. And so I appreciate hearing from you, because then we can think about how to support students in our school district to have similar types of experiences where they can share their learning with other people in a fun and authentic way. And so thank you for taking the time to share with us today.
I had a question for you. It sounds like you've been doing exhibitions for quite a few years now, correct?
Yep.
Yes. So thinking back, right, over the years to where you are now, how have your exhibitions evolved as you've grown? And how have you grown as a learner through those exhibitions?
I feel like they've always become like more like challenging, but not like too challenging, and also like more like bigger topics. Like in second grade, we did one about like dinosaurs and stuff, and now we're doing like stuff about like our own body and like what we want for our life and stuff. So.
Yeah, I think I don't have much to add for that because I joined as of last year, but I think also it's just like it basically I just think as you grow, like you just learn more and just like with the learner profile for our school, it just like you actually like throughout the year we are like grading ourselves and like how we think we're doing on that, and I think just as you go through like grades and such, it just changes like a lot, and you like as you look at it you're like, wow, I actually have changed like a lot through learning and such.
Yeah.
Well, thank you both so much for sharing. A round of applause. And I think we're going to switch rooms so everyone here can join another room, and some new folks are going to come in here. So, Finley and Levi, you can share again in a moment.
Great job. Thank you.
So Student Cam is C-SPAN's national documentary competition, and this year it asked students to create a 5 to 6 minute video that was about how the Declaration of Independence either has an influence on America's 250-year history, or how the values stated in the Declaration touch on a contemporary issue impacting our communities.
Our concept was how poverty affects one's access to the rights that all citizens should have from the Declaration of Independence.
So for our process, we started off with planning and research. In the top right, this is a part of a document that our teacher assigned us that made us think about what is a documentary and what are things that should go into a documentary. This like got us thinking about like the basics of what we should see in our documentary. In the bottom right, we have like our info and like where we are citing our sources, and then we have our script are the other two documents.
So we needed to interview people for this, and here are some of the people we chose to interview.
We interviewed Billy, who is unhoused as of January 2026.
Reverend Jeff Potter of Parkwood Church.
Judge Mike Jacko, a former public defender in Baltimore, Maryland.
And Dr. Matthew Harbaugh, who is a doctor in Pittsburgh.
Our next step was filming our script and editing. We went around the city of Pittsburgh in various locations, such as the Three Sisters Bridge, Highland Park, and the Millville Trail, and we filmed our entire script. Then we edited it, which took a very long time.
In the end, we won 3rd place for middle school across the entire nation.
You might be wondering how this relates to our portrait of a graduate, and so we came up with a couple of our reasons. So to start off with collaboration, as we filmed, we critiqued each other, fixed any imperfections that we noticed, and we worked together for many hours to perfect the scripts, prepare for interviews, and film the actual video.
Empathy was a huge one because we had to think about what everyone was going through and allow other people to realize what people were going through in their daily life.
When it comes to competencies of a Talbot, perseverance was one of the most important ones to us. We knew from the start that we wanted to try and win. We never gave up on this hope, and when things became challenging, we worked through them and tried to find solutions to everything. And this perseverance led our dream to becoming a reality in the end.
Communication was huge because we not only had to communicate with each other, but also ask people other questions about around the world and or around us, and ask them to be interviewed and what they know about our topic.
But in the end, we eventually got a letter from the governor that also congratulated us for winning 3rd prize. That was pretty cool. Your turn.
Okay. So at Hampton, we have an exhibition of learning, and I want to thank Eli and Evan for coming this afternoon and sharing with you. So as part of our district structure, we have what's called an operational plan that came from our strategic plan. So when we talk about our student learner centered journey and our portrait of a Talbot, which is our mascot, our portrait of a learner, one of our big categories when we think about our big moves was how to measure success in many different ways. And so an exhibition naturally came of that. So we have something in Pittsburgh called Remake Learning Days, which is this kind of a national 1 month celebration of remaking learning. So what we've taken that structure and applied to an exhibition of learning. So we opened it up to grades 3 through 12. And as you can see here, Evan and Eli's was a project. It was an assignment in school that they took on and won an award. But then we came back and our enrichment facilitator or their teachers asked them, hey, this is a great example. And how can you really tie what you've learned? How can you reflect on that process and share that with the community and with other families? So that's kind of the structure that we have here. It's not graded. The boys did receive probably a grade for the project along the way, but not all projects are like that. We have third graders portfolios that they share where they're tagging pieces of their work throughout the year that are meaningfully hitting the competencies that we have. We have 6 competencies. We had AP research students presenting their projects, and then we have like Eli and Evan. So it's a unique space where kids can present in any kind of format, but the goal is they have to tie it back to the portrait and they have to share with the community and the families about how they got to where they did. So the emphasis isn't on, I mean, I know the boys won 3rd place and that's great, but that's really not what it's about. It's about, hey, can you reflect and share with us your learning process? How did you get there? What was it like? And how is the learning deeper because of this? So that's a little bit about it. We have it was like a few weeks ago. We probably had 110 presentations with about 90 students, and we had about 30 teachers come out and support. So we have the teachers spend the year, flagging kids or maybe doing something extra or, working with students to find something that they want to do. Because we have curiosity quests, we have all kinds of different things. And then we come together for one evening. Now, part of our operational plan was when we scale it up each year was to have 2 exhibitions of learning. Now, these are large scale. And we also have something here called Hues and Harmony, which is our arts and music kind of evening. So we took that existing structure and we retrofitted it to an exhibition. So again, we've asked those students who are coming out to share their art and their music and performance, and once again, to share reflection with the community tied to our portrait. So it was a good way to kind of achieve that goal of having 2 exhibitions. And where we're seeing it go now is I think our buildings are interested in doing more small scale because it doesn't have to be a big production of a night, but sometimes now open house is a good way for kids to show their learning with their families and other families as well. So again, it's just really about sharing your learning with an authentic audience. So I guess we'll turn it over if anyone has questions for either Eli and Evan about the process and the work that they're doing, or for myself on what an exhibition looks like at Hampton.
Evan and Eli, I'll pose a question. I'm curious, how is this different? What was the experience of, creating this documentary versus, I don't know, a more traditional experience in the classroom, like taking a standardized test?
This is pretty interesting. A lot of it was like planning in class, but we had to do all the filming outside of school. I think maybe one or two groups filmed in school, but it was interesting how we could like bring like our knowledge of like things like video editing and making from like other experiences we've had into something that's like actually graded in schoolwork.
Any other, I love that your reflection was that you were able to pull in outside skills. Maybe that's not something you're able to do on a standardized test. I'm just thinking about the amount of effort, your energy for this project, or was that different than a more traditional school experience that you might have had?
It was definitely different because instead of just taking notes inside, we went outside and actually into the real world and did stuff for our own school. So it was fun in that way and very different.
It was also very motivating that there was like, you can win prizes from this, like you don't get a prize if you do good on a test, but if you like really did good on the documentary, you could like win money as the prize. So one person asked if I could go back in time and do one thing differently, what would I do? Probably like get everything like more organized. We had it pretty organized by the end, but there was like a lot of different documents that we had and some things that like could have been combined into one that would have just like made for a smoother experience. Also probably getting on it like doing it way before the deadline because we ended up editing it, like finishing it like 2 nights before it was due. So that wasn't ideal either. Somebody else asked, oh yeah, no problem. Somebody else asked what other demonstration of learning we would like to do. I'm not exactly sure. I mean,
did you do last year too?
Like the remote learning thing.
Demonstration.
Yeah. We also did the exhibition of learning last year. That was a bit different for a different project, but yeah, it's pretty interesting.
What did you do?
Oh yeah. Yeah, we did like building mountain biking trails for like the public and like how it related to like perseverance and collaboration.
For some of the selection for people, the question was, how did you select the people that you interviewed? And if you could select other people to interview in the future, who would they be and why? And the way we selected people was people we knew and people we knew had experience in these topics. And then Billy, we were going through Pittsburgh asking different places if they'd know like anyone who would be able to talk about our topics. And someone went up to us and told us they'd do an interview, and that was Billy.
And then we also tried to reach out to other people, like we reached out to professors at like our local university. Sadly, like none of them responded, but those were, when we were looking into who to interview, a lot of those like professors and like college educators came up.
All right, it sounds like that is all the time we have. Actually, there's a great question in the chat. Let's end with that one. Has this project helped you lean toward a career path? If you guys can answer quickly, and then we'll move to the next room. I think that's a good one.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not sure. I don't necessarily know if I'm going to do video editing, but it's very interesting for like the other aspect about like helping people experiencing poverty, and that could definitely be a career path for either of us.
It was definitely like different than what we usually do. I'm not sure if I'm going to be doing anything that relates to any of this in my future, but it was definitely fun.
Great. Thank you, Eli, and Evan, and Dr. Thornton for sharing. Participants, feel free to move to another room, and we'll just sit tight and wait for the next group to come in.
Okay. All right. Lady, you want to go ahead and introduce yourself?
Okay, so hello, my name is Lady Sakan. I am an 8th grader here at Seeks Middle School in Honolulu, Hawaii. And SEEKS stands for School for Examining Essential Questions of Sustainability. And at SEEKS, we have this class called 8th Grade Defense. And for the first half of the class, from around March to May, we have from January to March, we have our portfolio. So at SEEKS, we have this thing called sustainability skills. And there are 5 sustainability skills. There's managing effectively, communicating powerfully, collaborating productively, thinking systemically, and reasoning analytically. And throughout your years at SEEKS, you will learn and grow in these sustainability skills. So for our sustainability skill portfolio, we have first, I have to do my current understanding of the sustainability skill, which is managing effectively. Then you have to show your growth in managing effectively. And you have to as well choose an example project that you've done at any of your years at SEEKS that shows just how you exercised or maybe didn't exercise that sustainability skill. And then the last one is you connect the exemplar to the sustainability skill and just how you used it in the project. Okay, so the second part of the 8th grade defense process at SEEKS is the presentation. And the presentation work goes on from around March to May. The 8th grade defense presentation is a 12 to 15 minute presentation with 2 of the 5 sustainability skills that I mentioned. And it's basically me showing my understanding and growth of that sustainability skill. So we have the about me. We have
the two sustainability skills that I chose, which were communicating powerfully and managing effectively. And then we have my understanding and then how my exemplar that I chose communicates. So this is a art project that I created in 7th grade, a self-portrait project actually. And some of the ways that it connects to communicating powerfully is that the colors in the painting, I feel like express my emotions, especially since I was just kind of learning about art in 7th grade. So I was really experimenting with all of the bright colors. The next one is objects communicate meaning. Like, for example, the purple orchids there. Purple orchids symbolize respect, admiration, and royalty. And I really wanted to symbolize some of the people in my life in that painting, so that's what I chose to put. And then the last one that I'll be talking about is the ripped edges symbolize uniqueness. I kind of wanted to show that you don't have to be perfect, or you don't have to be like fully whole to still be beautiful, or you can still be beautiful even if you're not perfect. The second sustainability skill that I chose was managing effectively. And the reason I chose this exemplar is because I had like really major time constraints on this art project. I only had 5 days to build the frame, stretch the canvas, and then paint the painting. So overall, I only had 3 days to start and finish the entire painting. So at Seeks, we have this thing called the Seeks Vision, and it is seekers are stewards of planet Earth and healthy, effective citizens of the world. Some of these pictures on my slide are examples of how I've exercised my stewardship and the Seeks sustainability or the Seeks Vision even before I joined Seeks. My growth at Seeks. So in 6th grade, I had just arrived on Oahu when I joined Seeks, and I was just a really nervous person and just a nervous 6th grader. And then in 7th grade, as I said, I got introduced to art, and I also became a Seeks ambassador, which is basically a program at Seeks where students can tour prospective teachers, prospective students, we can tour them around our school and just tell them about it, and they can get the perspective of the students that go to Seeks. And now that I'm in 8th grade, I feel like I've really embraced my ambassador role. I've been to 2 school functions as a representative of Seeks, and I feel like I've just really gotten in tap with the Seeks community, and I'm kind of sad to be leaving because I'm going to leave all my friends. But next year I get to see their 8th grade defenses, so that'll be fun.
Yeah, so Lady just described our entire portfolio defense process, which is, as she shared, it consists of 2 components. The portfolio portion, which is meant to symbolize or connect to like creating a resume of all your work and your growth and your learning. And then that's the first written component. And once students pass that based on the rubric, they prepare for their defense, which is meant to like mirror an interview where they defend their understanding of 2 of the 5 sustainability skills to a panel of Seeks teachers, a 7th grader, and community panelists, community partners. And they basically defend like their understanding of the 5 sustainability skills, not necessarily being an expert in them, but defend that they understand what it takes to collaborate productively or think systemically, even if they self-reflect that they are not yet, able to do those skills fully, as many adults aren't either. And so this process, preparing the process officially goes from 2nd semester. 8th graders have a specific class at Seeks where they, the whole point of the class is to help them prepare for this, review the sustainability skills, do writing workshops, get peer feedback, get advice about how to write clear statements of reflection, and just kind of like a workshop writing course to prepare for all of this, and review rubrics and have like a community of everybody working on the same project at once. But even before 8th grade, our sustainability skills are woven throughout every class at Seeks. And the idea is that teachers help students recognize when they are practicing different skills throughout different projects. So an English teacher might say, hey, we're going to write a sustainability skill reflection at the end of this essay assignment to talk about how we've reasoned analytically to write an argumentative essay about this topic. Or a math teacher might say, hey, we're gonna write a sustainability skill reflection after we do this carnival probability project to talk about how we've collaborated productively with our peers throughout this project. So sustainability skills are woven throughout every class at SEEKS, and students in 6th grade do a mini defense where they defend their understanding of one skill, and then they collect all of their reflections throughout their time at SEEKS. And in 8th grade, they get to look through their collection of reflections and decide which 5 they want to pull from and put those into their portfolio, hopefully showing some growth in their understanding. And then the idea is that moving forward, if we ever have a high school, students would in 10th grade defend their understanding of more skills, and then in 12th grade defend their understanding of all 5 of the skills. So it's meant to be a slow increase in that process. And then if you're curious about resources, on our website, we do have some sample written portfolios from students over the years, and then resources of the guidebook that we share with students and families, and the rubrics that we use to guide this process.
Thank you both so much for sharing. I have a question for you, lady, as you think about this whole process, going through like all the reflections that you've done over the years, and you talked about your journey in terms of building the portfolio and doing the defense. What was something you really liked about the process, and what was challenging about the process?
I really, really enjoyed doing the visuals. It was my first time learning how to make a website, so that was actually something that was really fun to learn about and just to kind of experiment with. And then also like creating the formatting of my presentation and where I wanted everything, and like creating like the notes and everything for my presentation was just really, really fun for me. I think the hardest part was the presentation itself. I have pretty bad stage fright, especially when I'm presenting in front of more people. So I think that was one of the harder parts for me, was just kind of like getting up there and just like starting the presentation. Maybe one of the other, I wouldn't say more difficult, but more like technical parts was like finding the projects that I wanted to use for my portfolio, or the ones that I knew that I'd done work on, but I had to like find them, or maybe finding a project where I'm like, oh, I don't have a sustainability skill reflection for that, so I had to like make one for that, or like do it then instead of having something that I could base it off of.
Mm-hmm. And did you do all that work and the building of the presentation and all of that in that class that you take in 8th grade? Is that when you were able to work on that?
Yes. So for the second semester of 8th grade, we have our 8th grade defense class, which is when I learned how to create the website, and I created the sustainability skill project reflections for all 5 sustainability skills, and that's when we really put it all together. But I actually started my 8th grade defense like presentation in 7th grade, but that's not mandatory. I just did that because I was excited.
That's awesome. That's amazing. What do you think you learned about yourself in this process, in the actual defense process?
Honestly, I feel like I'm not a super confident person, so I feel like I gained some confidence from doing the presentation, because it was really scary, but I was an exemplar. So at SEEKS we have a round of students who the whole school, or not the whole school, but like a larger group of students will watch to see how maybe they should do their 8th grade defense, or how an 8th grade defense would look like. So I feel like that really gave me confidence, and was like, oh, you can do this, like your defense is good. So that was really nice.
Yeah. Well, it takes a lot of confidence to share in a webinar and in a recording. So I think you've done a great job. It's really awesome to see your work, and it's also really cool to see the SEEKS process. So thank you for sharing.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah.
We really appreciate it.
Where's my...
So I just want to start with a gigantic round of applause for the students and the leaders that took time out of May-cember crazy end of year schedules to come and share their learning with us. Thank you from the bottom of my heart, students and leaders. Like, thank you, thank you, thank you. And with that, I'm now going to turn to our webinar participants and express some gratitude for your high quality questions and engaging thoughts and feedback that you shared in your breakout rooms. And I want to spread that love a little bit. I want to give some time for us to make meaning as a whole group. Back in this whole group, you don't have the ability to come off mute and speak. So instead, we're going to just fill up the chat with all of your reflections. So we're just going to take a moment. Choose your own adventure. I heard that from a lot of students that I appreciated the opportunities to make choices in their learning. So here's a chance for you to make a choice in yours. Maybe you want to shout out a leader or a learner. Maybe you were inspired by something you want to share. You want to share a next step or even something else that you need. So I will be paying particularly close attention to that last bullet as we can update the website. If there are additional resources or examples that you're craving, let us know. But please just take a moment in the chat. Choose your own adventure, pick a bullet that feels relevant, and let's spread the learning. Oh, Ava and Andy getting a shout out to the Laguna team. Amazing. Oh, we've got a next step is to share this with colleagues. Oh, I'm so glad that that is your next step. My hope is that this becomes very portable and shareable as the website will last after this webinar. And my intention is actually to take all of the recordings of the student exhibitions and add them to that website. So keep an eye, that'll be coming soon. Chad says, after seeing these students share their story or project, he's inspired for future leaders. I agree. What a great way to end my Tuesday. Incredible. Yeah, everyone, just take a peek at the chat. Students, you have clearly inspired educators across the country. Hats off to all of you. Thank you so, so much. And with that, we're going to wind down. I just want to re-anchor on the resources that are available. If you are interested in exploring exhibitions or defenses of learning, please check out learnercenter.org. You can get there from that website that was shared in the webinar, or of course, just type it into your web browser. There are lots and lots of strategies, tools, webinars, blogs to help you on your journey, and it is all there accessible on your phone or your computer. I'm just going to throw up our contact information just in case you have questions, not just for the Learner-Centered Collaborative team, but for any of the leaders and learners that you heard from today. We can be your conduit. So if you've got a question for Laguna Beach or any of the schools that you heard from, reach out to us at collaborate@learnercenter.org, and we will be happy to get you in touch with folks to make sure we get your questions answered. And with that, I just want to say thank you all so much for coming. Have a wonderful rest of your May, and special shout out, thank you learners and leaders for inspiring us. Have a great day, everybody.